The left pushes on Disney for 1 second and boom, Disney just hops too. The right says, guys, maybe you shouldn't get so political, and the right is the bad guys. That's the way that this idiotic logic works. So yesterday we reported that Hulu had come under fire from Democrats for the great sin of not running political ads. So they weren't overtly political, and the Democrats got mad. So now Hulu is going to start accepting political ads. That happened within 24 hours. Quote, this is Axios. Disney on Wednesday confirmed to Axios it would allow political issue ads in addition to candidate ads on Hulu's streaming service, effective immediately, bringing Hulu's ad policies to parity with Disney's cable networks. The change comes amid a controversy over Hulu's decision to reject political issue ads about guns and abortion from Democratic groups. Those issues have become central to Democrats' midterm messaging. Disney's decision to reject the ads on Hulu prompted complaints of censorship. Hulu's ad guidelines will now match those used for Disney's cable channels like ESPN and FX, allowing issue and candidate ads to run across the service so long as they align with Disney's general ad standards. These are different ad standards compared to the ones used by Disney's broadcast networks like ABC and local ABC affiliates. Broadcasters are required by law to accept ads from political candidates on any topic, no matter how controversial. They're legally forbidden to reject a political candidate's ad based on its content, with the exception of something like obscenity. But those laws don't apply to Hulu, which is an online company. It doesn't matter. They're now going to apply the same rules that they do to, broadcast that they now do to their online content. Hulu has prohibited issue advertising for years, but after 5 seconds of the Democrats pushing, they're like, oh, fine, we'll run your abortion ad. Disney now says, quote, after a thorough review of ad policies across its linear networks and streaming platforms over the last few years, Disney is now aligning Hulu's political advertising policies to be consistent with the company's general entertainment and sports cable networks and ESPN+. Disney said it won't accept political ads or alcohol ads when it introduces an ad-supported tier for Disney Plus later this year in an effort to keep the service family-friendly. Per its statement about Hulu, ESPN Plus will accept political ads. Now again, this is just because the Democrats were whining about it. Democrats whine, Disney hops too. It's that simple. Ron DeSantis in the state of Florida is trying to push back against ESG, environmental social governance standards. These big corporations have decided to basically all go woke in order to please their political paymasters. And Ron DeSantis is fighting back. According to the Florida governmental website, Governor DeSantis has now announced legislative proposals and administrative actions to protect Floridians from the environmental, social, and corporate governance movement, which threatens the vitality of the American economy and Americans' economic freedom by targeting disfavored individuals and industries to advance a woke ideological agenda. Governor DeSantis said, quote, leveraging of corporate power to impose an ideological agenda on society represents an alarming trend. From Wall Street banks to massive asset managers and big tech companies, we've seen the corporate elite use their economic power to impose policies on the country they could not achieve at the ballot box. Through the actions I announced today, we are protecting Floridians from woke capital and asserting the authority of our constitutional system over ideological corporate power. So the proposed legislation for the 2023 legislative session will prohibit big banks, credit card companies, and money transmitters from discriminating against customers for their religious, political, or social beliefs. Which, again, makes a lot of sense. You don't want your credit card company deciding that you're not allowed to give charity to your local church because, after all, they disagree with the principles of your local church. The legislation would prohibit the State Board of Administration of fund managers from considering ESG factors when investing the state's money. So instead of looking at ESG criteria when you're deciding whether to invest with BlackRock or a comparable alternative, now they're not allowed to look at ESG factors. And it requires fund managers to consider only maximizing the return on investment on behalf of Florida's retirees. So instead of trying to sacrifice retirees' money to the woke gods, instead, you're going to have to look at, the companies that are most profitable. All of this is a good move by Governor DeSantis. I'd like to see other red state governors follow the same pattern. The proposed legislation will also amend Florida's Deceptive and Unfair Trade Practices statute to prohibit discriminatory practices by large financial institutions based on ESG social credit score metrics. This ESG score is a framework created to force companies to meet ESG standards and includes metrics based on political affiliation, religious beliefs, certain industry engagement, and ESG benchmarks. Violations will be considered deceptive. Unfair trade practices will be punished according to the law. Now, again, there are people who are sort of libertarian-minded who are like, why is Ron DeSantis doing this? And the answer is, Ron DeSantis is saying that we are not going to allow you to pretend to do a thing that you're not actually doing, namely investing on behalf of your consumers when you're really just doing political activity. And we are also not going to spend state money subsidizing left-wing political activity from major corporations, because as we see, major corporations are very often run by people of the left who are willing to do the bidding of the left with a little bit of media pressure. That's what just happened with Disney and Hulu. And remember, the Disney never would have gone woke in the first place in Florida. They wouldn't have been involved in the entire gender theory issue if it had not been for the left forcing them into that position. Well, play stupid games, win stupid prizes is the theme right now. It is hilarious that we were all supposed to sort of fall down in spasms of ecstasy when Meghan Markle, a B-rate actress, married into the royal family in Britain. She's one of the most manipulative people on the American public scene. I thought that we fought a revolution so we didn't have to listen to princesses, but apparently we are supposed to listen to princes and princesses from another country. Meghan Markle obviously has political ambitions, by the way, in the United States. Well, now it turns out that Meghan Markle lied to Oprah. According to the news.com.au, quote, there's a long and not so glorious history of royal siblings being pains in the butt. The Queen's first few years on the job were blighted by Princess Margaret's romantic carryings-on. Their father, George VI, only ended up on the throne much to his misery because his brother, Edward VIII, was hooked on the viperous Wallis Simpson. Both Elizabeth I and Henry I went so far as to orchestrate the deaths of their sister and brother, respectively. However, no relation of a member of the royal family has caused as much tumult, spawned so many headlines, or made such a tabloid spectacle of herself as Samantha Markle, the older half-sister of Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. It's going to Daniela Elser writing. Samantha, 57, is currently suing her sibling in a Florida court, alleging the Duchess told untruths during her interview with Oprah Winfrey last year. In March, when the case was filed, lawyers for Samantha claimed that Meghan had told false and malicious lies about her rags to royalty journey and contested the former Suits star's declaration she grew up as an only child. On Wednesday, lawyers for Meghan denied she had lied during the sensational TV interview, saying only that her only child assertion was, quote, not meant to be a statement of objective fact, that she had no genetic siblings or half-siblings. Rather, it was a textbook example of a subjective statement about how a person feels about her childhood. What now? So if you say that you're an only child and it turns out you have siblings, that's pretty clearly a lie, right? But apparently she meant it figuratively, which is weird. Oh boy, says this columnist, La Famille Markle is a doozy, a clutch of scattered relatives from Oregon to Mexico who have done everything from market a strain of weed to staging paparazzi photos to squeeze every last dollar and drop of publicity out of their connection to the Duchess. It's impossible not to feel sympathy for her being stuck with this grasping lot. However, one unfortunate side effect of this case and this week's legal towing and froing is that it has renewed focus on the fact that on occasion, Meghan Markle has said things that were later found to not exactly hold water. Samantha's case is focused on an interview that Meghan and Harry gave talk show titan Winfrey in March of last year, in which they aimed both barrels at the palace. The phrase jaw-dropping gets dragged out with grating ubiquity, but the Sussex litany of claims were quite literally that. Global audiences watched as the Duke and Duchess laid out a series of truly shocking charges against his family, interspersed with the sort of sensational revelations any tabloid editor worth their incipient gout would kill for. But, to a lesser degree, what the 2-hour confessional is also remembered for is that it included a bunch of assertions that didn't stack up. Take the big day that wasn't. Meghan said, quote, 3 days before our wedding, we got married. No one knows that. But we called the Archbishop. We just said, look, this spectacle is for the world. We want our union between us. So the vows that we have framed in our room are the two of us in our backyard with the Archbishop of Canterbury. The only problem is that the Archbishop pushed back, saying that while he had had a number of private and pastoral meetings, their legal wedding was on Saturday. Then there was the streaming question. Harry said at one point, Netflix and Spotify, that was never part of the plan. Meghan said we had no plan. But then the Telegraph reported the couple had a series of meetings with Quibi in 2019. Later, the paper also reported that the Duchess of Sussex had, quote, been in discussions with Netflix about her animated television series in 2018. Then there's the question of their son Archie, his lack of title and security. Oprah asked Meghan during a discussion about titles, having the title gives you the safety and protection? And she agreed. The sticking point is that being a prince or princess does not automatically guarantee around-the-clock bodyguards. Only one of the Queen's kids has that level of protection, Prince Charles. Likewise, only one of Her Majesty's 7 adult grandchildren, Prince William, has full-time bodyguards. This week, lawyers for Meghan filed paperwork for Samantha's case to be dismissed, but there's one striking detail in all of this that has largely been ignored. Samantha is seeking $107,000. That is nearly the exact same figure as the cost of all the new pieces of clothing Meghan debuted in 2021. Amazing. So, Meghan Markle, again, not the most honest of human beings, but we're all supposed to bow down and worship at the altar for some odd reason. Solid stuff. The battle for the culture is heating up. We here at the Daily Wire are making some big moves. So be sure to like, subscribe, ring that bell, because you're not going to want to miss a single moment.